Okay, so in this tutorial, we're going to spend some time working with the type tools in Illustrator, and I'm going to introduce you to some little bit more advanced features, building on what you've already been doing in the course working with type. So you've been using type to add labels to your work and to put in the credits on your images. And we're going to just work a little bit more and look at some slightly more advanced features. And I'm going to show you a bit of a workflow for how to choose type sizes and for your type elements for your poster. So you're going to be working with your poster content. So that's the first part, is choosing type sizes and type faces for your elements in your poster. The second part is going to be working with combining type and image. So you're going to be importing an image into Illustrator and working with a type object that is an irregular shape. And then you're going to be taking vector type elements, importing them into Photoshop, and integrating it in with your image. So you're going to do those two things. One is establish type sizes for your poster, and the second one is going to be integrating type and image, a little bit of experimentation. So let's get started. I'm going to go and download the, you're welcome to start with this or work with your own. It's up to you. I just set this up with some margins for you. So you can download this template file. And what Illustrator will do, or if your Mac is set up the same as me, it will automatically open it in Illustrator. So this is a trick to finding files that are open in Illustrator. If along the tab at the top, you can just right click, go Reveal in Finder, and that'll show you the image most likely in your downloads folder. So you want to get it organized right away. I just hit the Tab key to open it up, the Command T on my keyboard to open up a new tab. And I'm going to go here to my exercise folder. I'm going to move it into here. So it'll be slightly different on Windows, but I'm sure very similar. And then go ahead and start working on it. Okay, so this is the basic amount that you'll do. If you do more work, then that moves up your achievement of the learning outcomes, which will affect your grade. So the way that we're going to start this is always with the body copy. So the main copy that you're going to work with on your poster. So this paragraph that you wrote about the career. I have a pseudo one that I made, so I'm going to copy it, have it here in a text document, and then I'm just going to paste it into here. So make sure you have all those things ready in a separate file. So a couple of different ways you can work with type elements in Illustrator. Here, your type tool. So if you click, it'll create a type object. Switch over to the selection tool. This is called, and here this is called the opposite of this. This is a toggle here. So you have point type and area type. So I can convert this to area type or convert it back to point type. So by default, if you click, what you end up with is point type, and automatically fill it with placeholder text. If you click and drag, that'll create area type. So if you're working with more than one line of copy in Illustrator, you should work with area type, because that allows you to control the box that the type fits in. So go ahead and click and drag and create area type, and then paste your copy. So again, this is just placeholder copy that I'm using. Yours, you're probably going to edit it in place. So this is a way of copywriting that our directors do, they actually write in the comp. So we'll edit the copy from the copywriter, write it in the comp. So here we have a type object. So when just like any other object in Illustrator, when you select it, you'll see here that we end up with in the properties palette, we end up with an area for the character and the paragraph and the area type. So those three areas appear in the properties palette. And you can access more about that, write more options for your character and your paragraph here on the by clicking on the ellipse. So, but what I want you to do is, because we are working with type in this exercise, I want you to go ahead and open some new palettes. So go down here under Window, go to Type, and open up your character. That'll open 3 palettes. We're going to work with all of them today. So what we're going to do is drag these down here to the bottom, and I'm actually going to collapse my color palette and drag the OpenType one as well here. So now we have 3 new palettes here. So we have OpenType, paragraph, and character. And I'm going to go ahead and I want you to do the same thing. I want you to save it. So update your GD157. So what we want to do to start with is we want to choose, again, our body copy size. So I've given you a list of typefaces that you can work with. I want you to start with working with those. From there on, you can choose your own for your poster, but this will give you a good start. So I'm actually going to start with a typeface called Alwyn. And the reason why I like Alwyn is it's similar to a typeface that I work with a lot called Clavica. That's not free with the Adobe Type library, but it has the same kind of character. It's a sans serif typeface that has these soft ends to them, soft terminals. So it has rounded corners on it. And this one is very similar in character. It's not quite as well designed as Clavica, but it's kind of similar in character. So looking here at the character palette, you'll see here that I've chosen Alwyn. And if you don't have Alwyn installed, you can go here to Find More. And after this activates the Adobe Fonts library, you will be able to type in here, Find More. You'll be able to type in Alwyn and install it simply by clicking on the little cloud. So the cloud allows you to activate it. It might take a couple of minutes at the most, depending on your internet connection, to download and install them, but it will be basically available automatically inside of your Fonts tab. So this is the stuff on your computer. This is the stuff on the Adobe Fonts library. And if you have something that's already installed, you can uninstall it. You'll see that it's installed because there's a little check mark beside it. When you hover over it, it gives you the opportunity to uninstall it. Okay, so here is your typeface, and here is the fonts. So again, a font is one of these, is it italic, bold, and bold italic. Those are all individual fonts, and this is the typeface. This first item here is the point size, and right beside it here is this thing called leading. And the leading automatically is set to, so I'm going to take this here, the 12, it's set to 1.2, so it's set to 120% by default. So when you go and set it to auto, that is 120% of your point size. that is not always ideal. So that is a default setting that Illustrator uses, Adobe InDesign uses it as well as Photoshop. They all use this 120% as your default leading. But because the X height of every typeface is a little bit different, the leading, that leading is rarely the perfect size, perfect height. So it depends on a lot of things. It depends on your line length. Again, the X height of the typeface, the length of copy, so how much copy there is to read, will define that leading. That's when it comes to perfect reading. Stylistically, that's up to you. But when it comes to reading this is copy that you're setting to be read. That's the primary purpose that is there. So it's very important that you optimize it for reading. But what is important here is that the way that we see this here, we're seeing it on the screen. I may even be seeing it at 100% on the screen size. This is not how I read it. So it's very important that when you are choosing your body copy size, that you print it out. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to take 3 of these here. One more. And I'm going to set all of these to different sizes. And I'm not going to worry too much about the leading at this point because, okay, and if you're working with these and you find you select the guides, go ahead and lock those. So the first one, 12 points is usually considered to be a good reading size for something that you're holding in your hand. But because this is a poster that's going to be sitting on the wall, you should go up at least 1 point size. So start at 13, 14, 15, and 16 points. 16 points here. And so I'm going to move this up here. Move this so it snaps right there. So what I want you to do now is I want you to set all of these area boxes, these text area boxes, so they automatically resize. This will save you from having to go in here and always be resizing these every time you change something. So we're going to go ahead and select all of them. And here under area type, click on the ellipses and go to auto size. And that'll just save you quite a bit of time every time you change something. You can see that that spacing isn't that great, so just open it up so you have a little more spacing. One way you can do it is by selecting all of these and go to and distribute spacing. So that's under the Align palette here at the very bottom. If you can't see this at the bottom of your line palette, it is a toggle display. So every time you click on this little button, it'll change the display here. And here at the bottom is distribute spacing. So that'll give you a little bit of space in between each one. And then go ahead and print it. So one more thing before you print it is you'll notice here that I have a couple of hyphens. Because this is such a short piece of copy, such a short body copy, hyphens are really not to your advantage here because you may at some point find that you need to hyphenate a word, but generally when you're working with short pieces of copy, a hyphen does not improve the reading. So you can actually go here at the bottom of the paragraph palette and turn off hyphenate. And you'll see this rag now it's not looking that great. So it's going to need some work. I'm not going to worry about that right now because what I want to do is just choose a type size. So I'm going to go ahead and print this to my printer that's right beside me here. And if you don't have this, then I suggest that you wait until you go to school before you move forward with this exercise. You can move forward if you want, but you may have to backtrack and do some testing. So if you don't have a printer in your house, then you'll need to go and do that either at school or find somebody who does, or go to a print center and do it. And this is really important because we are working with type that is going to be printed, not as not on screen. So it's really important that we establish some sizes that are comfortable to read it's on a wall. So here I have my printout, and I'm going to put it on the wall, and I'm going to choose a size that is comfortable. So if you need to do that, then you can pause this and choose a size that's comfortable. I find that this top one here, so all one has a very large X height. So the first one is actually fairly comfortable at reading at about 3 feet. So I'm going to actually choose this one here. So I chose I'm going to choose this one here. So I'm actually going to mark that when I post it to my Miro board. I'm going to mark it there, that this is the size that I want to work with. These other ones are a little bit large. The next thing I want to look at is actually the leading, because this, and you know, this is going to change a little bit when you put it in your poster depending on your line length, but I find this leading a little bit tight. So I'm actually going to move these a little bit down, and I'm going to take this. This is the one I'm going to work with. So 13 points, yes, not 12, it's 13. And I'm actually going to take this and I'm going to change it. I'm going to make it, look at 16 or maybe even 17 points. And what I'm really paying attention to here is a balance between this shape here, so the shape of the letter forms up to the top of the X height, from the baseline to the X height, a balance between this and this line and this space here. So this space in between here becomes really critical. So the space here between the baseline and the X height, that space becomes really critical here. And so I want to make sure that that feels comfortable. So once you've established this, once you've established what feels comfortable to you, I just want you to mark it there. Mark this space here. It's actually helpful to actually draw it in here. Because it just allows you to really pay attention to what that is. So just pick any of the two lines here and draw in this shape here, and that helps you to really notice what that space is and what the balance is between the two. If my line length was quite a bit shorter, I could actually get away with less space between the lines. So once you have your body copy size picked out, what you're going to do is you're going to go ahead and set your, so I've added two ideas here. One is the name of the prime, and the other one is, so here I'm going to actually work with point type. So I'm actually going to just click, not click and drag, and I'm going to paste there my prime name and the name of the career. So you're going to put in your name of your career in there and the name of the prime. I'm going to put in here just a name that actually I'm going to call this here the name of the career. I'm going to call it art director just to be consistent with my body copy. And Olivia. So again, I'm still working with Alwyn New Rounded, and I am working with, I'm going to start working with establishing some hierarchy. So this is going to be my base type. So this is for reading. Everything else is based on that. So again, scale is the way to establish, is one way to establish hierarchy, is scale. And because this is a poster, you're going to want something that reads at a different distance than the body copy. So what I'm going to do here is I'm going to take this character here, and I'm going to take the 16 and I'm going to multiply it by that beautiful scale that a lot of artists and art directors use. Artists, architects, art directors, yes. All kinds of, and scientists use this, which is the golden ratio. So 16 times 1.618, that'll give me a second size. So I'm going to use that size for the name of the prime. And then for this one here, I'm going to go up one size more. And I'm going to go times 1.618. So now I have 3 sizes. And this is a nice large size for my poster. And you know what? You may find that once you get this all laid out on your poster, you want to go up another size still. But using those increments, using a scale, will give your type a rhythm to it. And it's one of those powerful features that we have in Illustrator, that we can enter equations in here and it does the work for us. So in order to simplify my work here, I'm not too worried here. If you have a longer name, let's just make this longer. Just you may want to really think about the leading here. If you have a short name, you don't have to worry too much about the leading, but I'm going to go ahead and make this title longer. So Art Director of City Strategy. And so this is still, I'm working with point type, and I'll show you some of the, one reason why I'm working with point type with individual lines of type makes a lot of sense. So I'm going to go ahead and take this, and I'm going to actually separate it from this one. I'm going to put this one up here, this one below, and let's first of all set it to 120%. That's one thing I find helpful here is once you've established this, those little increments don't mean a lot. So I'm just going to round it up to 42 points, and then I'm going to go 42 times 1.2. And this is way too much leading, as you can see, for heading. Really, you can actually get away with, I sometimes like to work with this space being the same as the width, as the X height. So that's probably what I'll do here, is I'm just going to take this here, and you can see here, this line here, this green line that showed up, this is what makes working with point type so powerful in Illustrator. It's this new feature that I'm going to show you. It's right here at the bottom. So at the bottom of your character palette, you can see here you have these guidelines that you can activate. So this is going to align anything that I draw on top of this type. I'm going to have this opportunity to align with the baseline and with the X height. So if I go ahead and just put my cursor over here, it may be hard to see on this video, but you'll be able to see it on the screen. You can see when I hover over it that this changes to green, and it's a little bit of a fussy tool. It doesn't always work with every typeface in every situation, but when it does, it's pretty magical. And what it does is that green line is the X height, and that line that appears at the bottom is the baseline. So pretty powerful. And there's a few of them here. One is it allows you to identify the bounds, and here it actually allows you to see the anchor points along the side. See, it allows you to align objects that you draw with the vector idea, the vector anchors that are in the type. So very powerful. So if I want to align these two together, well, all I'm going to do is I'm going to take this and I'm going to keep that this box that I drew. What I'm going to do is I'm going to take this and drag it up here to the top here, and there you can see the label actually appeared. And it's a little bit odd because these don't always appear. I'm not quite sure when they appear and when they don't, but they don't always appear. Okay, and then I'm just going to reduce this till I find something that's a little more comfortable. And this is kind of a starting point, so the rest is going to be optical. I'm going to have to adjust these, and I'm going to let you decide on your own based on the typefaces that you choose and your type what size it's going to be. But Sometimes it's actually helpful to pull this out and bring it up here. Okay, so now I have the same width as my X height. And this is actually, I find it pretty comfortable, that space. And this relationship is kind of automatic. I can actually, you know what, all1 has other weights, so I can actually play with other weights. So all1 rounded, this only has 2 weights activated. So I can actually look at what the bold looks like, or make this bold if I want a little more contrast. But that's actually, I find the relationship of these two is actually pretty good. It's actually a there's just enough contrast between these two. So now I have 3 elements. I just have to do 1 more, which is going to be, actually 2 more. So I want you to do 2 more. One is a new one that I didn't give to you before, but one is going to be your call to action. Call to action. So this could be, this should probably be the same size as your body copy. But the one thing that should be different is you probably have this one here. And I've spoken to you guys about this in class before, is that even the old folks don't need this anymore. It used to be that my mom would say, go to http://www.abbotsford.ca/art-director. This actually works. Like, people understand abbotsford.ca. That simplification is going to make it read a lot better. So people understand abbotsford.ca and they understand what the slash is, but you can actually style it so that it reads better as a URL. So it's very clear. And you really go back to the way we started when it came to URLs, which is making it blue. So that's one way, and you can choose any blue. It doesn't have to be that default. The default web blue used to be this one here, which is, let's take a look at it here. The default web blue used to be this one here. We used to have only 256 colors to choose from, and the default blue used to be this one here. So 0066FF was the default web blue, and by default all URLs were that color. And I think it was that one. No, it was brighter than that one. It wasn't that one. Anyways, you don't have to use that one, but this is a thing of the past, and you can actually choose any blue. And sometimes you can actually get away with a different color, but it's useful to think about where these things come from and why blue is of value, because there's a range of different URL colors that you have to choose if you get into UI design. You have to choose a color for when your cursor hovers over it. You have to choose a color for when it's already been clicked on before. So those all those colors are different colors, right? So your hover is going to be is going to contrast a lot. So when you hover over it, you get a different color. Anyways, you'll find out when you work in UI design when you do a course in that. So you're going to choose a color, and I suggest blue, a different color than black, and you're going to choose underline. And by default, Illustrator does not allow much control over this. InDesign allows a lot more control over the underline. You can do it manually if you want. Some art directors like to do the underline as a dotted line, make it a little bit softer or a little bit thinner. For now, you can leave it like this. So you have set your body copy, your main heading, the name of the prime, your call to action. The last thing I want you to do is actually, I want you to get a chance to work with this very special type of character that we have with our new type of typefaces. So what I want you to do is actually enter this thing that appears a lot in these types of ads, which is the posting number. So if you've ever seen these postings that appear in different places, a lot of times they'll tell you when you apply to quote the posting number. So you're going to go ahead and do this, posting number. Can you actually probably even write HR posting number, or sometimes it's actually like this, posting number, HR, and then just enter a random set of numbers. Just don't do them in sequential order. I want you to enter 9 numbers, and not in sequential order. And so what we want to do is set this quite a bit smaller. So again, we're going to do the same thing. We're going to go ahead and multiply this times the opposite of it. So we're going to multiply times 0.618, and that'll give us this really nice small size that we can work with. So this is our posting number. And what is really, really powerful about this new type format that we work with, which is called OpenType. You may have seen when you open up Illustrator that it's warning you that Illustrator does not, or Adobe is going to stop supporting Type 1. So Type 1 has a number of limitations with it. One is that it only supported 256 glyphs. So let's just take a minute to think about what a glyph is. This here is a character. This is the character, lowercase r. This here is the character, uppercase D. Depending on your typeface, you may have more than one versions of these characters. So each version is called a glyph. And the way that you find your glyphs is by going here to Type and open up Glyphs. And here you can see all the glyphs that are available for this font. So here is each character and each glyph. So you can see that, for example, for the letter I, you actually have multiple glyphs for the lowercase letter I, because you have some that have different diacritics on top, right? So you have this, you have it with the I, with the, well, here's the uppercase I with the with the umlaut on it. And so each of those is its own glyph. Each of these individual characters is its own glyph. And before, when we were working with Type 1, you could only have 256 of this. So if you started adding special characters to it, you'd have to open a different font file. And that the limitation is huge with that. It makes using special characters a lot of extra work. So for example here, if we are going to go with, if we had, for example, if in your, I don't know, I should have actually chosen a title that has this, but if the title of your career had an FI in it, this actually is a special character. It's actually an individual glyph. And it's pretty powerful that Illustrator understands this as two separate letters that you read, but it understands it as one glyph. And that is because those two characters, the F and the I, when they're beside each other, the dot in the I interferes with this top of the F. So that's where we get this thing called a ligature. And before OpenType, so you're still working with Type 1, so still a valid part of this course to consider it. With Type 1 typefaces, you cannot always include the ligatures in the Type 1 typeface because it's limited by the number of glyphs that it include. But in OpenType you can. And that's where you get this amazing thing here. Let's just switch over to OpenType. You get this thing where, I'm just gonna, go to OpenType. And I'm gonna pull this up here so I can see it a bit better. We have this thing here called standard ligatures. So I can turn that off or I can turn it on. And ligatures are this, a sign of sophistication, particularly because ligatures used to have to be hand set. So there's a lot of extra work to go in there and make sure your ligatures were in there. But OpenType doesn't just support special characters like ligatures and swashes. It actually supports this other type of character, which is the way that numbers used to be written inside of text. So when we wrote numbers inside text, we used to write them as what's now called proportional old style, or text figures, or non-lining figures, where it's a way of setting your numbers so that they read like text figures as opposed to standing out. So during the Victorian era, this idea happened where numbers became more important than ideas. So that, with the rise of capitalism, the numbers became more important than ideas. So that what you sold something for became more important than the ideas behind it. And so we started emphasizing numbers a lot more, so that they would stand out in the text. But here you can see how this number 23 actually reads much more beautifully inside the text than the other way, than like that. It actually reads quite beautifully. So this is where you access it here, and you can see there's a few different types of characters that you can access with this OpenType palette, and it depends on the typeface that you're using. So for instance, if I switch over here to a typeface called Bookmania, and this is available with your like Adobe subscription. I'm not in love with the light version, but it's okay. But the regular version is actually a pretty nice typeface to work with. It's a bit jarring compared to Alwyn. You can see here that the X height is a little bit smaller, but the interesting thing about Bookmania is it's based on this old typeface called Bookman, and you can see here how many glyphs are available for for each character. So almost every character has alternate versions of it, and there is actually some very lovely alternates, and that includes here this thing called discretionary ligatures. So you can see here that there's some really pretty ones that are nice to work with in large sizes. So very rarely does it make sense to set this in your body copy, but body copy does benefit from this one here, from the standard ligatures. Okay, so I'm just going to get rid of this here. Go back to my Alwyn. I'm going to delete this. So I want you to take a minute to just use the OpenType palette to set this posting number, and you can set it wherever you want. It doesn't have to be sitting right underneath here. From here on, I just want you to identify a couple things, and it's just for comparison. So I want you to identify the baseline. So I'm going to go ahead and draw out a baseline here. So just using this using the glyph alignment, so snap the glyph tool, you're going to draw out the baseline. Give it a different color. Actually make sure that it's a nice thin line so it's easy to see what that is. So a hairline is 1/4 of a point. So make it a hairline. And you're going to take this here and you're going to give it, take it and give it a tiny bit of opacity. Reduce the opacity slightly to 50%, just so you can see between here. So if you zoom in here, you can see here that these terminals end on the baseline. But if you scrub over, you'll see that anything with a curve on it does not. So any character with a curve does not sit on the baseline. And then you're going to take this line that you drew and drag it up till it snaps to, and this may or not. So one trick is that if that X height snap the glyph is not working, which it doesn't always work for me, you can actually align this to one of the anchors in the typeface. So just drag it down, and and it's not working for me right now again, but a little bit buggy tool, but when it works, it's beautiful. You can just eyeball it too, because you can zoom in really close here. Not sure why it's not appearing right now, but there we go. So I want you to have 3 lines on here and add a label to it. So X height, baseline, and then I want you to just do it to the next one down. So just take this and drag it down to here. There we go. Now it showed up. Okay. I'm going to take this one, and this one. I'm going to right click. I'm going to go average, vertical. So that just aligns all of those together, and then pull it out a little bit. And here's where I want you to add 2 labels to this. Don't need this one, but I want you to add some labels to what you've done here. So go ahead and put your name in here, and then using the same color as you did for your, I'm just using cyan. You're welcome to use cyan if you want. Using our smallest size here. So I'm going to take the, so this is one trick too, is that if you have text selected and you hover over another piece of text, you'll see that a little type tool appears with your eyedropper. And this allows you to select that type size and apply it to the one that you have selected. So, a little trick. Try to show you some little tricks that make your life easier. So here, this is the X height. And this is still a little bit big. So let's make it 1 size smaller. I'm going to make sure this aligns to the left. X height. Baseline. And this here is actually what in digital typography we call the leading. Technically, it's not, but because leading was actually a piece of lead that we put in between the metal type. So, but this is what we call it in digital typography. So it's a line here. Again, give it a stroke of 0.25. And what I'm going to do is I'm just going to add some arrowheads to it. So this is the default arrowhead number 5. Number 5. So a little trick too that Illustrator gives us for aligning arrowheads. We can take the arrowhead and align it with the end of the line, or we can align the bottom of the arrowhead with the end of the line. So we have those 2 choices. And that's the leading. And the last thing I want you to do is just make sure you identify what the typeface is that you're using here. So I'm going to switch this to line to the left. And this is Alwyn. Alwyn, rounded. So now we have elements that you can work. You can just take these and put them into your poster because you've already figured out how they're working with the sizes, and then you can just like massage it from there. But here's the choice that you have: is I want you to compare this to a. So you've done either a serif or a sans serif. I want you to compare it to the opposite. So I want you to take this here and drag this down, and you'll notice here that I didn't unlock my guides before I did that. Unlock my guides, and I'm taking the artboard tool, and again, click, hold the option key down once I'm already dragging, and then I just hold the shift key down to align it, and then I let go of the mouse first, and it didn't copy my guides. I didn't unlock them. Okay, I clicked on the wrong toggle. Okay. Take the artboard tool, actually accidentally created an artboard, little one. Okay, drag it down. And for this one, you don't have to do all of this work. I really only want you to compare one thing. So you can actually, if you go ahead and do more, so you only have to do, this is the minimum amount that you have to do to get a C on this exercise. Lock your guides. You can actually delete the rest of it. Delete everything here. Delete it. And what I want you to do with this one is I want you to switch the typeface. So I'm going to go with a typeface called Livery. So because the first one was a sans, now I'm going to go with a serif. I'm going to go with Livery. And I want you to compare the difference in X height. That's all that I want you to do with that. So this is the original one here from up above. So this is the X height of Alwyn. And here I'm going to make this hyphenated just to distinguish it. And here it can be a little bit of a challenge because, especially with serif typefaces, snap the glyphs doesn't seem to work very well. But I'm going to make this dashed. So I'm going to make it 6 and 3. Or actually, no, 3 and 4. I'm going to do 3 and 4. 4, 3, 4, 2. Okay, 4 and 2. Fine. That looks okay. Oh yeah, that's right. It has some transparency built into it. That's why the color looks different. Okay, so I'm going to take this and I'm going to drag it down and see if I can snap it, find that X height. It's not giving it to me. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to find a character here that is, and because, you know, this is a serif typeface that has very odd shapes to it. Illustrator is not finding the X height. So I'm showing this to you because it can be a little bit of a challenge, but in this case I'm not so worried about finding the exact spot on it because in the end it is fairly optical. So this I is quite a bit higher than the R, so I'm going to find some kind of space in between where it feels like the type designer actually intended for this X height to be. Here you can see here that the C is sticking up above. So that's probably pretty close. So you can see there's quite a bit of difference in this X height. And I'm just going to go ahead and make this a solid line. So this is the minimum that I want you to do. If you explore more with Bodycopy, with another typeface, you can move your grade up to a B or a by doing the extra work. It'll increase your learning outcome. It definitely correlates really well with the, it makes the grading very valid because it connects directly with learning outcomes. So make sure that you save this, save your work. So save as, enter your name in here, and save it. Save it to your exercise folder. And then the next part we're going to do, we're going to look at integrating your type and your image.